Oh, oh, this is Beruku 1. Beruku 1 at the menu. Beruku 1, you know, in the name of Rastafarian. Taina Yistelin in there, Beruku 1. You know, this. I just want to show this, man. This right here is basically this is Alex Jones, right? And an activist by the name of Antonio Bueller, and his police are the real domestic terrorists, right? So what I call this is, right, I call this you know, it's kind of like Alex Jones. He fighting Alex Jones fighting racism from, you know, fighting crooked racist cops from Texas to New York.
Anthony Hippolito, they all lined up and supported this cover up.
Now the thing is that's interesting is something interesting that this man says right here.
People can make excuses about
he says something over here. Hold on, let's.
Right. They'll come up with an order, and then when you don't jump through the hoops fast enough, when they tell you to go move back 60 feet, and you only move
see now this brother right here, this Hebrew brother who probably, you know, he find this out. I'm not sure if he knows the Hebrew yet or not.
America is being collapsed. Do the cops think the globalists that are taking over this country are going to care about their rights after they've taken yours?
And that's the thing.
See, that's interesting because see, the police already work. They, you know, they already do the work. Basically of the globalists, the government. But what we're looking at right here, there's something that Alex Jones said, because his brother, he made a comment. So if you bear with I for one moment, let's get to this part, because I want to speak on this, and I want to, you know, kind of speak to Alex Jones. I hope Alex Jones, you know, I hope you get to see this, because really, you know, Alex Jones, you right here in Texas. I'm in Texas too. This is one of the most racist states to deal with. I mean, this is probably one of the worst. Really is one of the worst. They're all bad. They're all probably the worst, but still, you know, we already know this is one of the worst states.
I mean, so maybe you need to go to prison, boy.
Well, they want me to, that's for sure. They don't like it when people are out there exposing them for their crimes.
Well, I tell you, but we're sure a free country. You know, did you ever imagine when you were in Kosovo and Iraq and places you'd be being indicted for this?
No, and you know, quite frankly, everyone told me how I was protecting freedoms overseas and all that stuff, but I feel like I'm doing more to do it by fighting the police here, because the police are the real domestic terrorists, unfortunately, in this country.
Well, they certainly are trying to turn them into that, yeah. And I'm sure, I mean, like in New York, they would just probably beat you to death. I mean, you know, as bad as they are, it's kind of bad, like when, you know, the Austin police are, in my opinion, are pretty good compared to a lot of them, but I agree with you, the use totally wrong.
Yeah, right.
I guess,
I mean, don't get me wrong, I just came back from Jersey, you know, the police up there in New York, you know, they're bad, they're terrible, you know what I mean? It's like that, you know, a gang, it's a gang unit, you know what I mean? But still, you know, I'm down here in Texas. I know how these cops are.
Press release for someone who got indicted on a Class C misdemeanor. It's a traffic ticket, right? And so they're
all
against on the felony because there's 6 witnesses that say the cops lied. There was video, there was audio, 2 videos actually. So they knew that they couldn't do that, but they had to save face. So they went ahead and got me on 4 misdemeanors for failure to obey.
Failure to obey the order of a police officer. But the message, the way the media said was, oh, you're allowed to film, but you got to obey and not film when we say.
Right. They'll come up with an order, and then when you don't jump through the hoops fast enough, when they tell you to go move back 60 feet, and you only move back 50 feet, then they can arrest you for failure to obey.
Well, my only issue is this. America is being collapsed. Do the cops think the globalists that are taking over this country are going to care about their rights after they've taken yours?
And that's the thing that bothers me the most about it, is they're dispensable. They're just like soldiers. The government doesn't care about them.
Exactly.
Just like
exactly.
Well, in fact, they hate
that's
them.
very important.
There's nobody they hate more than a citizen trained to fight after they're done with you.
Right. And as long as you're on their side doing their bidding, you're okay.
Right.
Once you like stand up and become an oath keeper, for example, then you become a threat.
Really scary.
An oath keeper, for example. I didn't even catch that part last time I was watching this. That's interesting, especially to one who is Rastafari. He would find that very interesting.
Right now, the government ships in the hard drugs. They're trying to put the kids on the hard prescription drugs. I mean, what a joke! End it all down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the drug war is it's used to punish the people and help out the prison systems, the pharmaceutical companies, and it just feeds the system. More people in the system, more people in jail, the better off they are.
Well, yeah, people can make excuses about this, but we have the largest prison population in the world. For those that don't know about your case, recap what happened.
Exactly.
I was designated driver on New Year's Day 2012. I was driving my buddy home. We were running out.
Exactly. They have the largest prison, basically. What he just say that again. Because he said that
veterans' children, if they get caught with half a marijuana cigarette, imagine they can also plant that on you. I mean, it should all be decriminalized right now. The government ships in the hard drugs. They're trying to. America is being collapsed.
No, it's something else he says up here. We want to catch. Let's catch what he says.
Most well known for his activism in police accountability, which stemmed from his controversial arrest in Austin on New Year's Day 2012.
It's something else Alex Jones said.
Right here. Out here doing
because Alex Jones said something one time. I want to address that too. Alex Jones said something about the British crown. He said Anglo, and he said the British crown, that Anglo and the British crown, it's not the same. Anglo doesn't mean white. He goes, Anglo doesn't mean white, folks. It's just a term used to address the British crown, right? But the original British crown, if you will, you know, the original crown, was a Moorish crown, was a black crown, was a black woman's crown. So, you know, that's another thing. So how can Anglo can't be used to really refer to the British crown, but Anglo itself more refers for us, and truthfully it refers to the Nordic tribes. You know, more referably to the Nordic tribe. Anyway, we'll do that in another video.
Beeler.com is the website. We'll put that up on screen for folks. We're going to skip this break because we're in overdrive right now. I got to tell you, here is the magazine where our reporters, for TV viewers out there, other folks can just go to Infowars.com and see it. Look right here. It's our reporters, or our crew, being given tickets for handing out magazines. And the police admitted to me on the phone, we've never been told to do this before, but we're going to do it. And until I went down there and threatened to sue them, then they backed off and said, we're sorry, which is even creepier. Because if I was to sue them, they'd probably just indict me for it. Which I guess you've got to, now we're indicting Alex for handing out magazines. Antonio, I mean, wow, a year later, because you have it back down, they are now, and everybody's seen the footage from across the street, somebody else shot that. I mean, the cop comes at you and is grabbing at you, not wanting it to be on tape. And now the good grand jury, hey, same kind of folks indicted the guy in Williamson County they knew was innocent. I mean, so maybe you need to go to prison, boy.
Well, see, exactly.
When people are out there exposed.
Boy, see, maybe you need to go to prison, boy, because he knows how they are. You know what I'm saying? It's right there. You go. It's that slavery thing. That whole you need to go to prison mentality. Yes, because the prison is what, the #1 stock market in their country, right? Why is it the #1 stock market? Because all the slaves, all the black and brown slaves, are filled in their prison. Not saying that there ain't, white folks in prison, but we know who the majority is in the prisons. Anyway, it's slavery in the first place. So anyway, first they did it to the, first they do it to black people. Now it's, now it's everybody. Everybody getting it done.
No, and quite frankly,
and this brother, he's probably YISAKAR. I'm more than likely sure he's YISAKAR. You know what I mean? I'm more than sure that because he's in Texas, so I'm more than sure he's YISAKAR. And I don't know whether he knows it or not. I know he's come to a heightened level of what's going on. You kind of look at his shirt and you look at that like that. What's that? That's that peace sign shirt that they have, but really it's like the Trinity, like in Ethiopia, like that triangular. One brother had it in his his picture one time. One brother had it in his drawing.
They couldn't get me on the felony because there's 6 witnesses that say the cops lied. There was video, there was audio, 2 videos actually. So they knew that they couldn't do that, but they had to save face. So they went ahead and got me on 4 misdemeanors for failure to obey.
Failure to obey the order of a police officer.
Now, it's interesting because Alex Jones, he says something in here because he started referring them to like Germany and stuff like that. You know, talking about how you referring the cops to, you know, the Nazis, you know, in Germany, the way they did the Jews during the Holocaust. I don't really have a problem with the, you know, the Holocaust, you know, talking about the Holocaust or speaking about the Holocaust, what happened to those people, because that's very, very important. That's serious. You know, I understand that, you know, that, they went through a Holocaust. But I remember one time, you know, when I was young, or, you know, I was younger, and I was sitting in class, I think I was in middle school, and we were learning about the Jewish Holocaust. And the teacher said something. She said, she said something about Mussolini and them, and she was like Hitler and them, and then she was like, yeah, and then they went to Africa, and then I asked her, I stopped her because, see, she was Jewish. And this one I didn't know nothing. I didn't know anything. You know what I'm saying? I just knew old little white-dominated world. I knew it was, you know, a lot of lies. You know, I knew there was some black truth behind the bullshit. But, excuse me, you know, but anyway, she says, she goes, yeah, they went into Africa. You know, Mussolini and them, they went into Africa. And I said, oh, I stopped it there because I was like, you know, at the time, I was in the class where it was mostly YISAKAR. You know, it was mostly Mexicanos around me. You know what I mean? And I'm black, right? So I'm sitting in there, and I'm like, I was like one of the only ones in the class at the time. So I said, you know, I was the only one. Actually, this is out of like 28 students, like 30 kids. I was the only one that was the you know, that was Yehuda, or that was African American, you know, so-called African American, black, whatever. But she goes, she says, I said, yeah, so they went into Africa, because I kind of stopped her right there. She was going, because I was very interested in the Holocaust. I did a big study on the Holocaust, you know, about Anne Frank. I know about all the torture systems that Hitler had. You know, his black magicianry and science and all that. And really what it was white domination, because he said straight up that he was trying to create a blonde-haired, blue-eyed race. Everybody knows that. But they still, for some fucking reason, deny the whole truth. So, I mean, if you just know that part, you know, and you deny the rest of it, you're pretty much an idiot. Because, see, the thing is, really, and this is the thing I was talking about with Alex Jones, because Alex Jones got over there on that part. He started talking about that, you know, when that came around. Let's get to that part real quick, because I want to pause right there at the Holocaust and the Jewish Holocaust and all that, because this is where we seem to have the problem. You know what I mean? This is where the problem seems to come into hand when we start speaking about, and then these truths start coming out. All these truths start coming out, especially when we look at the language. You know, languages were changed. You know what I mean? That's something we learned with Gerald Macy. Gerald Macy teaches that. You know how languages took their transitional changes. They started to change a little bit. You know, people change languages, you know, or try to use languages differently. So especially when we speak about the root languages, like, you know, the Afro-Shemitic, the Hebrew, or the Ethiopic, Amerindia, the Amharic. You know, when we start to speak about any of these, we know they change these languages later, or they use them different.
He wants to come in? I know he listens. Come on, let's go. I mean, you know, I'll be civil with you. And, you know, he's a smart talker. But let me tell you, if he doesn't do that...
But we're going to find that part real quick. But seriously, I want to name that this right here, you know,
and look at New York. I mean, I've talked to all
exactly. This is when Alex Jones says some real shit. You know, excuse me, I'm cursing and whatnot. You know, excuse me if you got children in the room. But this is when Alex Jones says some real stuff. You know what I mean? Well, how he's talking about the gangs and the police, how the police are gangs. And this man right here, he was basically beat up or hurt or whatever. But the problem is that what we trying to say to, like, you know, a lot of you know, the Gentiles, you know, Gentiles and white folks and things like that. What we're trying to say is that you're missing like another part of the story. There's another half of the story that you don't seem to be getting, and that's the African part of the story, the deeper inner Africa part of the story. You know, the biblical Christian deeper inner Africa part of the story. That's all of our story. You understand? That's all of our story, and mainly and particularly referring to these people, the Hebrew peoples, right? And how there's kind of a mix-up. You have the original rooted Hebrew people who should be basically you go in the proper order of it. Go in the proper order of it. But see, it's out of order. The reason it's out of order is because you're rejecting the proper order from the God, the true God, the righteous God, the good God. You're rejecting that proper order you're rejecting that order. You're rejecting it in that order. Let's put it that way, right? Because if you were going with that order, you would be able to get over all the other. So when we see what Hitler and all them were doing, so we know that there's people doing these things, right? But then there's other people exposing these things, and you have people like Alex Jones who are exposing these things. We see you as a good Gentile. Really? No, I mean, for real. I mean, I see you as a good one. I think you need, you know, of course you got more learning to do. You know what I mean? But I mean, you're a smart man. You know a lot. You exposed a lot, and we really appreciate it. If you start speaking up for, you know, the black and brown peoples and their history, that would be really great. If we could come together with this thing, and we be able to all come together and overcome these anti-globalists or these anti-globalists, excuse me, these, you know, these globalists, and the ones that you speak about. I mean, you're anti-globalist. You're anti-globalist. We're anti-globalist too, though. You know, we're not with those globalists. You understand? But we're with the righteous. We're with the righteous. We fight for what's oree, for what's righteous, for what's vision. You know.
Get down.
But anyway, let me find this part on this Alex Jones, and we'll continue this. But we want to speak about that, get into the Holocaust part about the other Jews, because I've seen some folks actually mention that. Some people still talking about that, about the Jewish Holocaust. You know, the whole thing with the Jewish Holocaust, which is very understandable. But what at the root of the Jewish Holocaust was very that you need to understand about it is that the root, what was persecuted was not so much as the people, but it was the culture, right? And it was the Jewish culture. It was the being Jews, or being Judah, or being Yehuda, or having the culture of Yehuda, or the Hebrew, or the original Afro-Shemitic culture that he was seeking to exterminate. Now the thing is that this would see, and then see, that's why you need to understand what white supremacy is, Alex Jones. You know, and all people need to understand white supremacy at its heightened extent, because it's not you. You're not the bad you know, white person we're talking about. We're talking about the people who have this type of mind state. And the interesting thing is that when we get on top, we see that it's bigger. It's not white supremacy. It's that the demonic or the devil is, you know, they're basically evil, if you will. You know, it goes even far past that. But then this is this tool that's used to basically try to, you know, it dominates the entire globe. They dominate the entire globe. It's just like one brother was telling you, you're talking about going back to 1776, you know, which is the revolutionists, which is when, you know, basically the rebellion from Mother England, right? Was basically, it was the rebellion from Mother England, which is cool, you know, the rebellion from Mother England. Y'all are rebelling from them. But then the Hebrews or whatever, or the slaves, right? You have to remember their Holocaust, right? Their Holocaust in 1472. You know what I mean? Or when's it? Their Holocaust in 16. When 100 million slaves were brought over from Africa during the Middle Passage and the transatlantic slave trade. You know, some say, I think they put that one in the 1700s. You know, some go back to the 1400s. Or that first time the slave ship was landed, it was like, some say 1604, somewhere around that time. But either way, a 400 or 500 year period. Or when the Judahites were brought over. When all the when the African slavery was going on. So that's what we want to remember. We want to go back to, so we can start to understand exactly what kind of situation that we're in. So anyway, we want to find that part with Alex Jones. We'll come back in a moment. Rastafari and Shalom. Shalom.
Do it to tourists with little